again. I need to make a third video for my series on the feminine economy. I realized after watching playback that I had left a big part out, and that's where we're going to correlate economies with genders, and not necessarily like how the economy works, but what the economy is based on. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to talk about foragers. Foragers are also known as hunter-gatherers, which I talk a lot about in my videos. And the first economy was foraging. And so foragers, they don't plant things. They simply go out and they eat what nature provides. And so because they simply rely on nature, they have to have a strategy for dealing with the cyclical rhythms of nature, where things are, growing at a certain time of the year and they're dead at another time of the year. So the way that they handle that is that they migrate. So just like birds and other animals have migration patterns, well, hunter-gatherers and foragers had migration patterns, still have migration patterns. So let's just say that in the summertime, they know where some berries are here. In the fall, they know where nuts are here. In the spring, they know where, let's say, roots, lots of hunter-gatherers eat roots like tubers, like, we would know them as potatoes, but there's other ones, yams, yucca, stuff like this, right? So then they'll eat that. And then in the summertime or something, man, the fish are running, at the seashore, so they're over there, okay? So they continuously move in these cycles. They're not always exactly perfect, yada, 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 okay? But this is the basic idea, is that they migrate because if they were to stay in one area, their resources would deplete, okay, because of the cyclical nature of nature. So they migrate, and they only use and eat what's already there, okay? At some point in the Neolithic, two more economies evolved from foraging, okay? And depending on where you were in the world, you were either one or the other. The two economies that evolved during the Neolithic were pastoralism and horticulture. One is male, the other is female. The whole reason that I made this third video is to talk about this. Let's talk about the female one first. Horticulture is female. This will come up over and over and over again in so many things that we talk about in our future videos. Horticulture is female. If you want to see over time and space and history the places where women have had the most power the most often, you will find that their economies are horticulture economies. Now, what is horticulture? Horticulture is small-scale agriculture, if you will. Horticulturists use innovative thinking, and they use human power to get the job done. So some examples of that would be South America. Peoples in South America would cut steps into the earth, and this helped them to conserve their rainwater. When it would rain, it wouldn't just go soak into the ground. It would soak into the ground at the first level, and then some would run off and go down, 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 down. And so they're making the most of every rain that they possibly can get. That's the innovative thinking. Horticulturists work with the cycles of earth. They do a little input, but because they tap into the big, huge cycles of the earth, they get a lot of output. Another example of horticultures that many of us probably know if you're watching these videos is the Native North Americans and the Three Sisters, the growing of the Three Sisters. The Three Sisters were corn, beans, and squash. You grow the corn, the beans grow up the corn, and then in the shade that the corn provides, that's where the squash grows. The growing of a grain and a legume, and you eat them in the same meal, creates a complete protein for humans. So this was the main food source of the native North Americans that used the Three Sisters. They also hunted, and they also migrated a little bit, moved a little bit. They were very free. You know, their movement was very free. They could go anywhere they wanted. But the men would still do a little hunting, and the women would still do a little gathering. They would hunt, they would gather, but they also grew things. So they were more settled than foragers. But they weren't, you know, just one thing. They had a little bit of everything going on. And the Three Sisters was innovative because not only did it grow a complete protein for everyone to eat, but also the ground itself was, when you grow corn, it takes nitrogen out of the ground. But when you grow beans, they put nitrogen into the ground. So they're concerning themselves also, not just with food right now, but with future production of the soil. They realize that the squash needs to grow in the shade, so they are making a shade for the squash to grow in. So this is very innovative thinking. Horticulturists use innovative thinking. They use the cycles of the earth. They use what the earth already provides, and they learn about the earth and its cycles and how it all works, and then they use their human innovative thinking to tap into that. Okay? Horticulture takes a small input and gets the most output for it. Okay? So that's horticulture. It's female. Horticulture is a feminine economy throughout history. Now let's talk about pastoralism. This is a economy based on animals. So this economy is, we would think like shepherds. A lot is a pretty good example where these people were raising animals. They were breeding animals, they were raising animals, they also migrated because they would stay in a certain area until their animals had consumed all of the resources in the area, and then they would move to a new area with new resources for the animals to consume. This economy is based on breeding, growing animals for slaughter or for dairy. Pastoralism is a man's world. It's a male economy. This source tells us that. This college source tells us all about the fact that horticulture is a female economy and that pastoralism is a male economy. Now, that's not to say that every single tribe and group that ever did either one of those was that or whatever. These are majorities that we're talking about, and what we're saying is that over the history of pastoralism, this is where you see the most often men having the most power. Horticulture, you see the most often women having the most power. Okay? We move out of these two in the Neolithic into modern day agriculture, and agriculture is large-scale horticulture. It's very intensive. It takes a big input. So agriculture is where you grow huge fields, you use huge pieces of land to grow one crop, maybe two, and you're using massive amounts of energy put into it. You're using massive amounts of water to irrigate. You're using machinery, which takes oil and gasoline and money to buy, all of which are inputs. You're buying seed from someone else, money, input. You're buying fertilizer from someone else, money, input. And agriculture, at the end of the day, takes more input than it gives output. And this is a problem that, is starting to be seen around the world. Not only are we using tons of resources to be using agriculture, but we're also running into soil depletion, which is a big problem of agriculture, is soil depletion. Now, I'm not saying that all horticulturists, got it right and they figured out how to not deplete their soil, but the Three Sisters did, right? Okay, because there's ways not to do that. There's ways. But agriculture is very big. And so to do things on a very big scale often means you need more inputs. To do things on a smaller scale, like horticulture, and we'll see this over and over again, lots of these correlations will come back, small versus big, male versus female, horticulture versus, plants versus animals. Okay, we'll see this over and over and over again. So for now, suffice to say, agriculture is also associated as a male economy. Okay? This same source tells us that agriculture is a male economy. Okay, so first we have foraging, which is very egalitarian. There's really not much of a power structure going on in foragers and hunter-gatherer societies, and everything is really egalitarian there. There's really no one in charge. Everyone's in charge of themselves. It's beautiful. Okay, so we move from foraging to either pastoralism or horticulture. Horticulture female, pastoralism male. We move from that to agriculture, agriculture male. And then we sort of have, like over here also, industrial, technological, which a lot of people will say are economies, but which I'm going to disagree with and say, if we didn't have food, those would just, tank the tank. And so really they're not really what economy is, because again, if take the food out and everything falls, well, then food must be what it really is, right? So I'm just going to basically talk about those, and I'm just going to kind of wrap up because we've really said it all now. We've talked about okay, so once we have our product, our food products in our hands, now we're going to go about trading them with other humans. This is another aspect of economy. It's called redistribution or distribution. There are ways of doing that. One is reciprocity, which is really more of the feminine economy that we talked about in the first video, where you go to the doctor in your little village and the doctor knows you're poor, and so he says, okay, for my services, you can just give me 2 chickens, for my Christmas dinner. I'll appreciate that. And if he knows that you're rich, he might say, okay, for my services, I'm going to charge you $100. This kind of exchange puts us in control of what we want for our service. Okay, it really gives us the most freedom, and it's different for each different person. So you have to kind of roll with that. The opposite of that is the market economy, where everything is predetermined. The value of every service is predetermined, and then we use money to represent that value, whatever that value is. So there's one in the middle, and it's called redistribution. And a small-scale redistribution example would be, like, let's say that we live in a little village, and we're going to have a celebration, and someone goes door to door and says, put something into the pot for the celebration. And so maybe you put some food, you have some food, maybe put some money, you have some money, maybe put some decorations, maybe you say, oh, my band can play, you contribute something, and then at the party, everything gets distributed, right? Because everybody gets to eat, everybody gets to drink, everybody gets to enjoy the music, the decorations, etc., okay? So that's small-scale redistribution. A large-scale redistribution is taxes. We all pay taxes, all that goes to the top, and then the top redistributes that as they see fit. Okay, so that's redistribution. Okay, so economy is all these things. It's the base of economy, which is always food and food production. It's how we distribute what our resources we get, okay? And economy is gendered. It tells us, this source tells us right here that economy is gendered. That when we find foragers and hunter-gatherers, we're probably going to find egalitarian most often. When we find horticulture, we're probably going to find women have power. When we find pastoralism, we're going to find that men have power. Agriculture, men have power. Okay? Economy is gendered. You know, it's crazy, right? But we'll talk about this more and more. The last thing I want to leave you with is that remember that the feminine economy, the distribution part of the feminine economy, creates social connections. Excuse me. And the male distribution economy discourages social connections. The market exchange discourages social connections. This source tells us that as well. Straight from this college textbook tells us, without mincing any words, market exchange discourages social connections. Okay? So that's what I want to take away from this as a little wrap up. Horticulture, female. Pastoralism, male. Foraging, egalitarian. Gift giving, okay, and what did we say? Reciprocity, feminine, okay. Market exchange, masculine. All right, we'll come back to that over and over and over again. I hope that you're enjoying these videos. I hope that you're working to feminize your life, feminize your family, feminize your future. And we have 2 superstructures up now. The economy, woo! Politics, woo! And then we're going to have the next superstructure up in 2 weeks. So keep watching. Okay? Okay.